standing outside of the St. Vincent College here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And we are going to be walking right over there somewhere, over there, to the Fred Rogers Center. And we're going to go see his exhibit, and we're going to then go to the Unity Cemetery and pay our respects to the man himself. So let's start, shall we? Here we are, the Fred M. Rogers Center on the grounds of St. Vincent College. Let's go take a look. And it looks like we enter the exhibit over here. Oh my gosh. Discovering the truth about ourselves is a lifetime's work, but it's worth the effort. Mr. Rogers, you are absolutely correct. Fearless authenticity. Fred Rogers Institute honors the work of Fred Rogers, the beloved creator and host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Born and raised in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and a lifelong friend of the St. Vincent community, Fred was known for his creativity, kindness, spirituality, and commitment to the well-being of children. Lovingly called America's favorite neighbor, Fred used his many abilities to inspire, nurture, and educate. Not only was Fred Rogers a pioneer in children's media, but he was also an artist, a minister, composer, and musician environmentalist, an advocate for children and their families. This exhibit offers a window into his work, both on screen and off. It examines the origins of Fred's core values, to which he adhered with fearless and unwavering authenticity, and follows his path from small-town boy to nationally known media personality. With his gentle, unassuming manner, he made a profound impression on everyone he encountered. The Fred Rogers Institute, previously the Fred Rogers Center for Early Learning and Children's Media, was established to preserve and extend his rich legacy. There's the man himself. And right here we have some of his sweaters, his penny loafers in there. And wow, his sneakers. These were worn by Mr. Rogers himself on the program. Wow. And if you notice, I did some digging and research, and these sneakers are still available today. They're made by Sperry, and they are the original CVO deck shoe. You can find them actually on Sperry.com. Just go to their website. I'll pop the link in the description for you guys, but you can purchase your own pair of Mr. Rogers sneakers from their website. And look at this. Look at this. His sweaters. Wow. These are actual sweaters worn by Mr. Rogers on the show. And these sweaters were made by his mother. Changing into his sweater and sneakers at the beginning of every program gives children a predictable introduction with some time to settle in. Mr. Rogers uses this time to talk about zipping a sweater and tying shoes as skills that young children are just learning. He also models care and responsibility for hanging up his clothes and putting away his shoes. I apologize about the focus quality here. And right here are all these pictures and a timeline of his life. There's Mr. Rogers with his parents, his grandmother, and his adopted sister. And there he is as a little boy with his mother. Fred McFeely Rogers was born on March 20th, 1928, right here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. He and his sister, Nancy Elaine Laney Rogers, were the children of Nancy McFeely Rogers, a dedicated community volunteer, and James Hillis Rogers, a prominent Latrobe industrialist. And if you notice, his middle name is McFeely, which, as we all know, became Mr. McFeely on the show. And this is a collection from his father's company, the McFeely Brick Company. Try to get this to focus a bit more for you guys. Poor quality, I do apologize. And this is his wife, Joanne Rogers, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And I'll just bet I know what Fred's words were when his wife finally joined him in the clouds above. And those are his sons right there. But I bet his greeting words to his wife were, "Welcome home to our heavenly neighborhood, Mrs. Rogers." That's when he was ordained as a minister. And here's a nice big picture of he and his wife. They also had a home out in Massachusetts. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe they had a house out near Cape Cod, which he loved to spend time at during his time off. This here is him behind the piano in the studio at WQED in Pittsburgh. And as you can see, in front of him is the set from the Neighborhood of Make-Believe. He always took us there every single day. And here's some of his neighbors. There he is with Joe, aka Handyman Negri, in Negri's music shop on the show. And this is Fred as a little boy in front of his little keyboard. Fred was very, very insecure as a child because he was chubby and picked on by his fellow classmates at school. But throughout all of that, he learned to be totally respectful and treat everyone around him with kindness and love. And here he is with his musical director, John Costa, whom you see right here, and Bobby, who was John Costa's drummer, and Carl, who is the bass violinist for the house band. Every day when you heard the intro to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that was played by these three guys. As Mr. Rogers would come in and sing, "Won't You Be My Neighbor?" All that music and everything else was played by those musicians. What's this? Touch the screen to watch some of Fred's best moments. Let's take a look at this. Let's watch some special guests. Yitzhak Perlman. Oh, this one was my favorite. Yo-Yo Ma.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because you started to play when you were very young, didn't you?
Sure, I was 4 years old, and I first started on the violin, and I have an older sister who plays violin, and I didn't want to. I could never be as good as she was, and so I said, forget it. I didn't want to. Rather play in the sandbox for a while, and then one day I saw a double bass, and that was, it was huge, absolutely huge instrument, and I thought this was my type of instrument, and that's what I wanted to do. But my parents said, look, kid, you might be able to live in the double bass, you can't climb up in it. So we compromised on playing the cello, and I promised my parents I'd stick to the cello and not switch again, and so I've kept up my end of the bargain.
Well, when you play, I'm sure you have a lot of different feelings. And as you played as a child, did you ever play happy things or sad things or angry things just because you wanted to?
Oh, sure. I mean, there would be times when I playtime. I would play if I was happy. I don't know, something. There's so many moods that we went through, and by the time I accumulated a repertoire of pieces, I just played there. One of my favorite was the Swan, which
This one's my favorite.
this was obviously a very peaceful, tranquil mood.
You ever play when you were really angry?
Sure, and there's one piece I know that I love to get into was this piece. Goes on and on and on. You're just digging in with all your strength and just got rid of a lot of frustrations.
And that's how you feel afterwards, relieved?
Relieved, absolutely relieved, and just after having given all this burst of energy, and felt good.
What about this cello of yours? This isn't the one you started with, is it?
No, I started on a miniature cello. It was like a 16th size, and some people claim it was...
Just walking around a little more. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Look at this. The trolley. The trolley that took us every day to the neighborhood of make-believe. Look at that. That's the original trolley that was used on the show. Now, there are so many different exhibits and places that have the trolley on display, but this is one of the originals that was used on the show. I can almost reach out and touch it. My gosh. I'm getting a little not gonna lie, I'm getting a little choked up here being this close to the trolley and to all of Fred's incredible things that he did and had. And look at this. Everyone, whether you love Fred Rogers, you know who he is, or you don't, I'm sure everybody is familiar with Daniel Tiger's clock. Remember, Lady Aberlin would come up and she would take this knocker and knock on the clock, and Daniel would poke his body and head out of here. And Fred would be down behind there with the puppet behind the clock. He would be behind here, and he would kneel down here, and he would put Daniel's puppet in his hand and bring him up here to talk to people. And Fred also used this clock originally on the Children's Corner, which was his very first show, where it was a drawing on the wall that formed the set. It became a permanent three-dimensional part of the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood set in 1967. Wow. And what Fred would do is he would get behind here and he'd kneel down, but over, if this was the real set, over around this area would be a television monitor that he would be able to watch what he was doing at the same time as saying his lines. Now, Fred wrote every single script to each show. You'll have things to talk about. I will too. The very end of his song. And this here, Fred actually had quite a bit of history within his life. Now, I'm not going to push on anything right now, but Fred had a little boy by the name of Jeff Erlinger on his show. Jeff was a paraplegic who was wheelchair bound and who could not, who had a disability. Now, Jeff Erlinger made one other appearance with Fred during Fred's TV Hall of Fame induction. This one I will press on because I want you to see this, okay?
Please welcome Jeffrey Erlinger. It's an honor to be here tonight, to be part of your this proud moment. You know, when you tell people that it's you I like, we know that you really mean it. And tonight, I want to let you know that on behalf of millions of children and grown-ups, it is you that I like.
Rogers.
This is when he received the Medal of
Fred
Freedom.
Rogers has entertained and educated children for more than 30 years through his extraordinary public television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. His program helps children understand caring, safety, and respect for others, and his legendary commitment to young people has been an enriching part of American life. The United States honors Fred Rogers for his dedication to the well-being of children, his faith, his family, and his community, and for a career that demonstrates the importance of kindness, compassion, and learning.
Wow. That's amazing. And here he is with former President Bill Clinton. You know, I just want to say that Mr. Rogers is a wonderful man, and he surely showed every child in the world love, kindness, and respect. Okay, that was a horrible Bill Clinton. I haven't tried to impersonate Bill Clinton in forever. So, and here he is with Senator John Hines III. And Eric Erickson. This here is a collection of some of the things that tied in with him over the years. Here is a book that he wrote that was written about him. Mr. Rogers talks about going to the doctor, going to school, the new baby, haircuts, moving, and fighting. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the typewriter that he wrote his scripts on. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we've got the PBS Awards up here. I do apologize for the quality. It's trying to adjust to the light and everything. And here is his Emmy Award. Focus. It's not going to focus. And here is a bust of Mr. Rogers. Now there's so much to see around here, but I'm not going to be able to see everything. But there is one more thing I want to look at, and that is right over here. Go around this corner. Right here are the actual puppets from the neighborhood of make-believe. Starting off with X the Owl, who lived in a tree next to Henrietta Pussycat, who unfortunately is not in this exhibit. Then we have the very feisty, greedy, but can be kind, Lady Elaine Fairchild. But she does not have her famous boomerang, toomerang, sumerang with her. Then we have Daniel Stripe Tiger. They said that all of the puppets that Fred made and voiced all had little pieces of himself in it. And Daniel was described as being the closest to Fred in puppet form, because Daniel was shy, but he was kind and sweet and was always wanting to learn and asking questions. And Fred was very shy as a boy, but was very curious about life and learning, and was very lovable, as we all know. And here we have Prince Tuesday, the son of
The Great King Friday the 13th. Zach from The Incredible Impression, I presume?
Correct as usual, King Friday.
Are you just strolling around the exhibit today?
Yes, your majesty, of course.
Yes, and what do you think of it?
I think it is one of the finest and most dedicated exhibits to Mr. Rogers there ever has been.
And you seem to be a little emotional here, Mr. Incredible Impression.
Well, I am King Friday because I grew up watching Mr. Rogers and watching you and Queen Sarah and Prince Tuesday, Daniel, Lady Elaine, X the Owl, Cornflake especially, who is a man who manufactures rocking chairs.
Yes, well, Corny is not here today, but I'm sure you might run into him perhaps over at the Heinz History Center.
Well, we hope we can.
Yes, well, enjoy the exhibit, carry on, and farewell.
Farewell, King Friday. There is just so much to go through here. It's impossible to do it all in one day. Here is a young Fred at the piano with his grandfather, McFeely. Fred Brooks McFeely was his name. Try to wrap your head around that. This man here taught us a lot about growing up, learning to care and love one another. Certainly one of my heroes. And here's Mr. McFeely, again named after his grandfather and Fred's middle name. David Knoll, who plays Mr. McFeely, played him on the show, said that originally the name for the Speedy Delivery Man was going to be Mr. McCurdy, who was the name of the man who was the president of the Sears Roebuck Foundation at the time. But less than an hour before the first episode was about to start filming, the studio got a call from Mr. McCurdy, and he said, "Thank you so much for the idea, but don't call the Speedy Delivery Man Mr. McCurdy. It's very much an honor, but come up with a different name." And so, because Fred's middle name was McFeely, he therefore christened the Speedy Delivery Man Mr. McFeely. Now, I had a chance to meet Mr. McFeely several years ago in Hershey when he appeared at the Hershey Museum. I had my picture taken with him and so much else. This little box says, "If you love what you're seeing, consider a small gift to enable others to continue to experience Fred Rogers' life and legacy." And Tony, you and I are going to donate, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
May generations upon generations of our children and their descendants come to know who Mr. Rogers truly was and what the mark he left on this earth. We have the guest book here. All right. Gonna sign the guest book here. Tony's gonna go first. To end the vlog, we've arrived here at the Unity Cemetery Chapel in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. This is where the memorial service for Fred Rogers took place when he passed away in 2003. And it was kind of a private event so that everyone could grieve privately, the family and the friends and neighbors, etc. And we're gonna take you down here right now and we're gonna visit Mr. Rogers' final resting place. Here we are in front of the mausoleum marked Given, which was Fred's mother's maiden name. And Fred, his mother, and his father, James, are in this mausoleum, as well as Fred's longtime wife, Joanne Bird Rogers, who sadly left us in 2021. And they are in this mausoleum here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Let's go up and pay our respects, shall we? You can see Fred's over here. If the camera will focus, Fred is right there. Maybe you have to come over here and get a better shot, Tony. And his mother is there as well. Do apologize about the focusing again, guys.
There's Fred right there.
Fred's right there.
He's right here.
Right there. And his parents.
His
Parents is
are right here. That's his
father.
father in the bottom. And his mother is in the top. The focus. Yep, there she is. And here his father is. And right down here, this is where Mr. Rogers' wife is buried. Right next to her husband. Just across the way.
You know, Tony and I, as we were coming out of Unity Cemetery, we happened to notice that the cemetery where Mr. Rogers is interred, if you look down, you can see not only the St. Vincent College where we just were, but his grave literally sits on top, overlooking his hometown of Latrobe. Kind of reminds me of John F. Kennedy's gravesite in Washington, D.C., where his grave overlooks, is parallel from the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the Reflection Pond, and all of the National Mall. President Kennedy belonged to the nation, whereas Fred Rogers belonged and still belongs to the hearts of everyone, especially children. Man, that's incredible to think. Wow.